What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new idea for a series called Successor. This is where I'm going to look at the first founding loyalist forces, starting with the Dark Angels, ending with the Raven Guard. And I'm going to ramble in each video one first founding force, giving you my favorite successor from them. I got to thinking about this by doing the Celestial Lion at a glance redo, and I got to thinking about it because successor chapters are cool. There's only a handful of successor chapters to get any real meaningful screen time in a way that people would pick them outright. Black Templars, Crimson Fist, and Flesh Tearers. But there's so many other successors, and they're more than just a palette swap, right? In the Space Marine Codex, you have 1,000,001 Ultramarine successors, and they can have very real different feels from how the Ultramarines are. The Mortar Factors feel very different from the Ultramarines, for example. And then in other codices, such as the Dark Angels and Blood Angels codices, where they have just one set of special rules, it really feels almost palette swap in nature, the successors. And in a way, yes, all successors are, but they also have lore on top of that. And one of the cool things is, over time, we've seen more and more lore support for successors. We're never going to see quite the support that the first founding get, because that would be a logistic nightmare with shoulder pads and decals and all that. Although I think GW should relaunch the decals it did years ago and maybe add some more as a limited release decal thing. I think that would be cool. But anyways, so part of the reason why I think, myself included, a lot of people go first founding is the model support is there to actually represent them 100%. But there are some pretty cool successors that people would probably go with, as opposed to going to a whole different force and be happy with. I'm not saying that happens all the time, but just as a quick aside, a quick tangent here, I do remember, but I forget what the guy went with. For some reason, he didn't know about the Blood Angels Codex. He saw the Blood Angels models, but he didn't really know about their codex and that they had a different codex and they play a certain different way. This was back when they didn't have a physical codex, when they had a PDF only. So I kind of get why he didn't know to check there. So nobody really talked about the Blood Angels then that much, or to him. And the guy went and played Orcs, I think. Got into Orcs, and it was hitting that wall of collecting 1,000,000 Orcs, and then learned that the Blood Angel Codex existed, and learned about playing, that you could be Blood Angels, they had different rules, and that they really gelled with what he wanted. And he felt, at that point, do I continue with the Orcs? Did he like the Orcs? Or do I go with the Blood Angels, something that he had an eye on ever since he first got into it? And that's a hard position to be in. So I thought, why not ramble about my favorite successors, one from each first founding force, and then give some honorable mention listing of other successors, because if this helps somebody not get into that position ever, then mission accomplished. It's worth doing all these rambles and potentially getting people annoyed at how I talk and talk too long about things. But with that said, being that this is the first ramble in the series, we're going to be talking about the First Legion, Dark Angels, their successors, and my personal favorite of theirs. They have a decent amount of successors now, including the Blades of Vengeance and Angels of Defiance, two primary successors, which are interesting. But on top of that, the Guardians of the Covenant are a very unique looking successor, color scheme wise, amongst the Unforgiven. And what makes the Dark Angels really cool to talk about, and as cool as their first for this, is that they have a very unique, close-knit relationship with their successors. They're collectively known as the Unforgiven. And they work very closely with each other. Joint operations, lending each other forces temporarily to help each other out, stuff of that regard. They do that, and it's not the standard thing. You would think, oh, here's a successor of the Imperial Fist, you think they'd be close-knit. Not the case. A lot of successor chapters are very independent from each other and from the first founding force. But the Unforgiven, as they're collectively known, are very close-knit and actually help each other out a lot. As I mentioned with joint operations and the like, it's not something that the Imperium necessarily likes, how buddy-buddy they are. They're essentially legion building without being one gigantic force, which I like, but it's just a unique thing. So discussing successors, I feel, has a little more emphasis here because of how close-knit everything is. So Disciples of Caliban have a very unique founding history, that they were a chapter that the Dark Angels themselves in the 37th millennium actually petitioned to get created, which is highly unorthodox and very controversial. So if that appeals to you, check them out. But of everything I mentioned, my personal favorite successor of the Dark Angels chapter is one of the 3 original successors, and is a second founding successor. So they have a long history, and that is the Angels of Vengeance Space Marine chapter. The name, love the name. The look, love the look. The chapter's demeanor, love it. They are a chapter I'm a big fan of, to the point that I could have gone either way when I collected my force initially. I went with the Dark Angels because I had model specific support and decal support. I do own the Angels of Vengeance decal sheet back when they did a limited run of stuff like that years ago. I wish they would do that again, because then I'd buy more. But I do own one decal sheet of theirs. If that was a thing that was going on when I got involved with 40k initially, it would have been a much closer toss-up between the two. That's how much I like the Angels of Vengeance Successor chapter. So let's start with the look, because the look goes with the name so well. Black goes with everything. That's kind of like fashion 101 or something like that, I guess. And just color scheme 101. Black goes with everything. So the armor is black. Chest emblem is classically white, which is how I would do it, but you could do it as a bright silver. But I would go with a white chest emblem, black armor, white squad markings. Their symbol is a white winged skull with a red hood, very Reaper-like. Goes with the whole vengeance name and motif. Weapons are red, helmet lenses are red. This alone, very clean, very simple, yet effective. Looks great. On top of that, we have the robes, because the Unforgiven are monastic. They use robes, just like the Dark Angels do. And while the symbol has a red hood, and you might see some fan armies with red cloaks and whatnot, and there's one artwork of a Grand Master in a red cloak, the official robe of the Angels of Vengeance, if you will, is black. That's how it's always talked about and depicted. Black in the codices. So this black armor with black robes, super simple and subtle, but highly sinister in its, in its execution. And it takes something that is kind of simple and gives it a little extra degree of difficulty, because now you got to do black in 2 different styles. If you do black the same way for both robes and armor together, it's going to blend together, look very bland and muted out. Because if you do black traditionally, just black paint and then highlight it with grays, you can do that for robes or cloth as well as hard armor, independent of each other, and it'll look great. But when you put them together, they gotta have 2 different effects. And when you have 2 different effects going on, they complement each other. It's very subtle, very simple feeling and looking, but actually is very satisfying, at least to my eye, and it really looks good. And when you combine it with the sinister nature just of the look, with the name Angels of Vengeance, and then you get into their fluff, it's just the trifecta of awesomeness for me, even though it's very simple feeling. Now, I like a myriad of different Space Marine chapters for a myriad of different reasons. This is this reasoning I love the Angels of Vengeance for. The Unforgiven all have, because they're all Dark Angel GNC descent, all have a very similar nature and demeanor to each other. They're all very grim, dour, taciturn, relentless, and just shun non-Unforgiven forces. They shun fame and laurels, amongst other things. These things I'm specifically mentioning, the Angels of Vengeance personify to 11. They crank it up to 11. They're really well known for this. They shun fame and laurels so much that not very much is known about them to the Imperium at large, and they don't care. All they're about is their duties and nothing else. They want to kill the enemies of the Emperor. They want to crush Chaos forces on their boot. They want to hunt the Fallen. And that's all they do in close joint operations at time with other Unforgiven members by themselves. When they're in the theater of war with non-Unforgiven, they distance themselves from them and do stuff their own way. And that's a flaw. It causes campaigns to be compromised for the other forces, but the Angels of Vengeance campaign is fine in their eyes, and that's all they care about. And it's a flaw, sure, but if anything was perfect, it would be kind of boring a little bit. So I like that flawed aspect of it. But they're tolerated for this because their battle record is exemplary. In fact, it's kind of awe-inspiring to other forces. They have victory after victory in battles that were deemed impossible to win. And part of this is because they'll do the whole attrition thing. They'll meat grinder it, and they'll take horrendous casualties, and it won't faze them. They aren't shaken by casualties. They don't want to take them, of course. They don't take extra casualties or anything like that. Their armor and their training and everything keeps them as safe as they can be in the hostile environment they're in. But the casualties aren't going to shake their confidence. They will achieve victory where it's thought impossible, and they'll bring the chapter to the very brink of extinction to do so, rebuild for a century, and do it all again, basically. So I just like that very single-minded, icy determination. It kind of makes other forces, non-Unforgiven forces, near them kind of leery. They're like, whoa, these guys are weird. They just feel off. Grim, dour, taciturn, icy, cold-blooded, single-minded determination to their duties puts off non-Unforgiven forces. So that's pretty. I just like all that. It's pretty cool to me. Clearly, I'm gushing. And that's the whole point of these rambles. But this aspect of what Space Marines are, the Emperor's Chosen, the Emperor's Angels of Death, the Angels of Vengeance have in name, visuals, and the way they conduct themselves. And it's just that aspect of what Space Marines are I really like. There's, like I said, a myriad of different ways that Space Marines can be personified. And this is one of the ways that I like, amongst many others, and the Angel of Vengeance personify this so well. When you look at them visually, especially when they're robed, the threat of death, violence, and sinisterness is there just at a glance. If they could kill you with a stare, they'd be killing a lot of people just by looking at them. So they're just really cool to me, and that's why I gush on it. And that's the whole point of this for all of the successors to talk about in the future as well. So what's neat is the way they're very aggressive in their fighting style, but it doesn't mean that they're assaulting necessarily. It just means they're very aggressive. And one of their assault punches is to pair their newly arrived reinforcements of Primaris and Scepters with Assault Marines. It's kind of a 1-2 flank punch. They'll bamf in. The Inceptors will just rip things apart with all their firepower, and then the Assault Marines will just roll over what's left, and they'll crush a flank that way, which is kind of cool. We also know, lore-wise, the name of their first and second company. Remember, all the Unforgiven comprehensive chapters, not the Primaris ones, have a pure Terminator and a pure Biker Speeder company. That's their first and second companies. Primaris may mimic that with like Inceptors and Aggressors and stuff, but that's kind of open in the air. But anyways, for the Angels of Vengeance, their first company is called Dreadwing, which is one of the 6 wings of the Legion, so it's kind of confusing. It's actually my favorite wing. This is just the name, it's not the way they are. But it's still cool that we know the name of their first company, because Deathwing and Ravenwing are the names only for the Dark Angels. So first company here is Dreadwing, second company is Raptorwing, and of note, the Raptorwing leader was actually borrowed by the Dark Angels to lead the Ravenwing in a period when the Ravenwing master was killed, and they had several masters killed in rapid succession between each other. The Dark Angels said, okay, this isn't right. The next Ravenwing master will be trained up even longer, and we're going to borrow the Raptorwing because they're known for their record, and we're going to have that leader train our leader on top of the training we're going to give our leader, and it's going to be great. So this represents the close-knit nature, and I think that's really cool. It's not something you would typically see. The closest we get to see this is when the Black Templars support the Celestial Lions in their rebuilding. That's the closest we see it outside of the Unforgiven, and that's a very big rarity. With the Unforgiven, they just expect to work with each other in close-knit nature, like joint operations and the like. So I just think that's really cool. And it's some bragging rights for the Angels of Vengeance if they cared about bragging rights. But anyways, that's it for the Angels of Vengeance gushing here. I'm a big fan of them. I do plan to do a test model of them myself because I've always wanted to for a while. I know I've had them, I just had to find them again. I refound that one decal sheet. I love for GW to re-release that temporarily. I buy a whole bunch more and maybe just flip everything to Angels of Vengeance for the fun of it. But anyways, really cool force for me. Share your thoughts on the Angels of Vengeance, like and dislike. If you hate them, that's fine, no big deal. What is your favorite Dark Angels Successor chapter and why? Post in the comment section. I don't know if video responses are doable anymore with YouTube. They haven't been for a while. If they are, feel free to do that as well. And just share your thoughts. Anyways, thanks for sticking through this. And until the next one, take it easy.